Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Paul Bloodgood. I am the Technical Solutions Sales Manager here at Smart Sites, and I will be the presenter today. Thank you for taking the time to attend this workshop. Let me start with a quick question. How many of you feel like you're buried in data at work? Maybe it's from your SCADA systems or just reports piling up in your inbox. If you answered yes, you are not alone. This is one of the biggest themes we hear from our customers across all industries. That's what today's workshop is all about. How we turn that data overload into clear, actionable insights. Not just numbers on a screen, but information that actually helps you make smarter decisions faster. I'll walk you through some of the challenges we all face, why older tools aren't keeping up, and then we'll get into some practical ways modern analytics can help. My goal is that you leave here with at least one or two ideas you can put to work immediately without needing to rip and replace everything you already have. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the data dilemma, where older tools often fall short and why more data doesn't always mean more clarity. After that, we'll dig into proactive analytics and what modern analytics enables. From there, I'll share some practical ways to modernize without turning your whole operation upside down by using our Excel reporter and ISA 18.2 module solution. Finally, we'll wrap up with key takeaways and next steps that you can start applying right away. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the question and answer menu, which is that question mark tab at the top right of your GoToWebinar window. I'll leave time at the end of the presentation to circle back and answer any questions. Okay, let's talk about the core challenge most industrial teams face today. On one hand, data is growing exponentially. SCADA systems, historians, IoT devices, sensors, they're all generating endless streams of information. The good news is we've gotten really good at collecting, but here's the problem. All that data is often stuck in silos. It's fragmented across different systems, formats, and locations. Just pulling it together when you need it can feel like a project in itself. And then there are the legacy tools, spreadsheets, manual logbooks, outdated reporting. They worked fine when the pace was slower, but today they're too slow and reactive. By the time a report is built and distributed, the issue it describes has already happened. Here's the irony. We've never had more data than we do right now, yet many teams feel like they have less clarity. Instead of predicting problems, they're still reacting to them. And the consequences are real. Unplanned downtime, inefficiency, and compliance headaches. So the dilemma is clear. It's not about getting more data, it's about transforming the data we already have into insight we can actually use. So if the challenge isn't getting more data, what's the answer? It's clarity. Think of it this way. Data by itself is just numbers on a screen. It tells you what happened, but it doesn't always tell you what it means or what to do about it. Here's a simple example. A report that says this machine's temperature spiked 50 times in the last hour. That's data. But if your system connects that pattern with past breakdowns and says this machine is showing signs of imminent failure, schedule maintenance within 48 hours, that's an insight. The difference is everything. Clarity takes us from being buried in numbers to actually being guided toward the right action. And when you have that clarity, the impact is real. Fewer surprises, less downtime, smoother compliance, and more confident decisions. So the real goal isn't just to collect more and more data, it's to cut through the complexity and turn that data into clear, actionable guidance. I encourage you to think about your own reports. Are they giving you clarity or just complexity? This is where we see a real shift from passively collecting data to actively using it. Reactive teams will ask, what just happened? While proactive teams will ask, what's about to happen and how can we get ahead of it? Proactive analytics means identifying failure patterns before they cause breakdowns, optimizing processes in real time, automating compliance so it's not a fire drill every audit. Think of it like driving. Looking only in the rear view mirror is reactive. Looking through the windshield, Seeing what's ahead is proactive. Here's where things get exciting. Modern analytics, especially when paired with AI, completely changes the way we think about operations. Instead of static snapshots, you can now monitor in real time and get automated alerts the moment something starts drifting out of spec. That alone shifts your team from reacting after the fact to catching issues as they develop. But it goes further. With predictive models, you can spot anomalies before they cause failures. Think about a pump that always shows subtle vibration changes before it breaks down. AI can recognize that pattern early and warn you before it becomes downtime. These tools can also surface trends that humans might miss. A dashboard may look fine at first glance, but AI can analyze years of history in seconds and flag that a small uptick actually signals a bigger problem down the road. On the flip side, analytics isn't just about risk, it's also about optimization. You can tweak production while it's running, not just in post-analysis. That means better efficiency and reduced waste in real time. In compliance, what used to be a fire drill, collecting logs, checking timestamps, formatting reports, can now be automated end to end. AI and analytics together make it accurate, consistent, and painless. So the shift is clear. We're no longer just asking what happened. Modern analytics and AI help us answer why did it happen and what's about to happen next. That's where the real value lies. Clarity, foresight, and faster decisions that keep operations ahead of the curve. One of the biggest concerns I hear when we talk about modernization is this. That sounds great, but isn't it going to be disruptive and expensive? The truth is, it doesn't have to be. Modernization is not a rip and replace exercise. You don't need to throw out your SCADA systems, your historians, or the reporting tools you already rely on. With Excel Reporter, we can integrate with what you already have, working right alongside your current systems. And the best way to start isn't with a giant overhaul. It's with small, practical steps. Maybe you begin by automating just one recurring report, or by setting up alerts on a single critical process. Each of those steps shows value quickly and builds momentum for the next one. That's the beauty of Excel Reporter. You can see immediate ROI in terms of reduced manual work, faster decisions, and clear insights without the pain of disruption. So modernization shouldn't be seen as an evolution, not a rebuild. By layering better analytics into your existing infrastructure, you can start seeing results right away and scale up as your team is ready. Before we dive into Excel Reporter and the ISA 18.2 module, let's wrap this up with a simple idea. Data is only valuable if we can act on it. Right now, most companies are swimming in numbers. But numbers alone don't create value. It's when we take that data and transform it into intelligence, into clear, actionable insights, that it truly becomes an asset. The organizations that are winning today aren't necessarily the ones with the most data. They're the ones who are using their data to drive smarter, faster decisions. They've made the shift from basic reporting, just looking backward, to proactive intelligence, looking forward, predicting, and preventing. And that's really the competitive edge. When you move from just collecting and reporting to actually anticipating and optimizing, you stop reacting to problems and start shaping outcomes. So the bottom line, insight is greater than raw numbers. And companies that embrace that mindset will lead the way in efficiency, resilience, and innovation. With all this in mind, let's dive a little deeper into Excel Reporter and how it can help solve these challenges. For those of you that may not be familiar with Excel Reporter, I'll walk through a high-level overview to start, and then we'll dive deeper into our ISA 18.2 module. There are 4 key parts to Excel Reporter: connect, design, report, and distribute. Excel Reporter allows connectivity to over 80 data sources, such as Viva, Rockwell, GE, and many others. Going back to an earlier point in the presentation regarding having data in a variety of sources, this right here is a prime example of how Excel Reporter can eliminate that confusion and bring clarity to your data. In addition to those 80 data sources, We have a very open architecture that allows us to use other types of input, such as relational databases or even log files as input, to support reporting on your operations. The great thing about the Design Studio, the composer portion of the product, is that it's based on workbook templates, basically Excel spreadsheets. The designer runs on its own and doesn't require Excel. However, if you do have Excel installed and want to use it in conjunction, the designer will simply run as a plugin within Excel. We can leverage templates that have been created in Excel, say it's a compliance report that you've made. We can import that and maintain compatibility with Excel formatting, content, and formulas. Another great example of Excel Reporter helping eliminate some of the issues we mentioned earlier in this presentation is here in the reports section. Like I mentioned before, maybe your compliance reporting is a fire drill every audit. With Excel Reporter, those reports can be run automatically on a schedule or on demand. Another great advantage here is that reports can be based on time or event triggers. This could be a great asset in turning your operation from a reactive one to a proactive one. Now you can get the data right away rather than being delayed. Aside from the Explorer view that you'll see here on the right, we also have a web browser interface and a new mobile app called Smart Sites Mobile, where you can view reports. Reports can be automatically distributed, for example, exported as workbooks or PDFs. They can be transferred via email, FTP, or even exported to a database. With Excel Reporter, Smart Sites offers an ISA 18.2 module, which is a perfect fit for solving several of the challenges that were discussed earlier in this presentation. Before we dive into the hands-on portion of the module, let's discuss what ISA 18.2 is. It is a standardized framework that's understood and accepted by OSHA and the insurance industry, and it revolves around a 7-step continuous process that aims to address common issues with industrial alarm systems. For example, information floods. There are so many conditions happening at the same time that the operator doesn't have a clear picture of what's happening or what they can do to resolve it. Poorly defined conditions, this contributes to floods obviously, but if there's a condition that really isn't abnormal that occurs all the time, that's throwing an alarm that can lead to an information flood. Sometimes these things can get so overwhelming or disruptive to the process that parts of the alarm system or the entire alarm system get suppressed by the control room or by the operators. And then they're basically in the dark because they can't see the real alarms through the flood of all the false alarms. So the goal of ISA standard is to prevent these things from happening and continuously monitor and improve the system so it's optimized to achieve its goal of safety and efficiency. It happens by identifying the philosophy of alarms. Why do we need an alarm in this industrial automated system? And it's identifying conditions to trigger the alarm, rationalizing how it happens, how it's enunciated. There's a detailed process of identifying conditions and implementing a system that actually alarms on the conditions. So once this is implemented, we run the system and see how it works. We continuously monitor and assess. We look at if there are any kind of problems like these happening in our system. We monitor them, we assess what the problems are, we discuss how we're going to change, and then we re-implement the alarm system. We go back to operating and maintaining it, assessing it, changing it, and so forth. It's a continuous process to drive optimization and improvement. This reporting solution assesses the full scope ISA 18.2 across the entire SCADA. So this would be the FactoryTalk, the Aviva system platform, iFix, etc. There are 12 ISA KPIs, which you can see here on the right, with different colors indicating where you fall within the ISA standards. You can change these thresholds, but these are essentially red light, green light evaluations of your system against the ISA standards. The idea here is you run these reports, you get a high-level dashboard, you can do drill down analysis, and we can filter this information for certain operator positions. Again, the goal here is to identify problems, reassess and readjust the alarm logic, go back to the operation phase, monitor, assess, and continuously use this loop to monitor and improve your system. Okay, now we'll transition over to my demo system where we have the ISA 18.2 module running. Give me 1 second. Okay, hopefully you can see this a little bit better than the PowerPoint slide, but this is the ISA 18.2 module. It has concepts like average alarm rate per day, per hour, per 10-minute period. This module also has to do with activity thresholds. So, for example, the amount of time you had more than 30 alarms per hour, which was basically all of the time in this example with 95.83%. You also have the amount of times you had more than 10 alarms in a 10-minute period. So it's giving you this idea of what this actually looks like to the operator. If an operator is receiving 10 alarms in 10 minutes, they're really not doing anything at that point besides responding to alarms. And so the process more or less comes to a halt. Flood percentage, this will tell you the percentage of time you were in a flood, which is when we have more than 10 alarms in 10 minutes. And the flood lasts until we go below 5 alarms in 5 minutes. So this is telling you when those high activity periods of time are in your process. There's also the concept of top 10 contribution. This is telling you how lopsided your system is. If you're running an oil rig, for example, and you have 5,000 different alarm conditions, and the top 10 make up 40.95% of the entire system, by definition, they're almost probably not logical alarms. Chattering fleeting tells us alarms that are oscillating above and below an activity threshold very quickly. Stale alarms are alarms that have lasted longer than 12 hours. And then these last two, we have the average in and out of the flood to give us a little perspective of what the normal times in our process look like versus the abnormal times. Each one of these metrics has a detailed sub-report that sort of speaks to the data behind it. We won't go over every single one of these, but as an example of one, if you look at the top 10 contribution and we think, why is this happening? Why do I have such a lopsided distribution? What's causing it? We actually generate a sub-report that tells you why. It tells you that in this particular system, the top alarm happens, 218 times in a day. And then the second alarm here happened 120 times. These are your bad actors. These are your nuisance alarms. The more lopsided this curve is, the more you have worse actors sitting at the top. We also have a lot of general housekeeping information, if you will, that happens in this report. For example, if we look at the concept of alarm acknowledgement time, and we look at the average time it takes to acknowledge alarms, we have alarms that are taking hours for people to even acknowledge them happening. That's something that we're looking at not only at the condition of the alarm itself, but what's happening with the operations and with the operators. Why is it this condition specifically they're taking so long to acknowledge? So this is something we would investigate more as a process and a procedural kind of thing. We have the same thing with activation. This is the amount of time the alarm spends in the active state. And then we can keep track of alarms that have been suppressed too. Again, this would be something we would go back to operators, maybe process engineers, and ask them, hey, why is this being suppressed? Why is this not useful? Is it distracting? What caused the suppression? All these reports help us understand what the operators are seeing behind some of these ISA 18.2 KPIs. And just to summarize, I hope you can see how helpful this module can be for your operation. Instead of swimming in your alarms and the data, this module will bring valuable numbers to the forefront and allow you to clean up the noise in your operation. We'll go ahead and head back over to the PowerPoint now to close out the presentation. So, what can you do next? First, take a look at how your team handles data today. Are you mostly reacting, or are you predicting and staying ahead? Second, Ask yourself if current tools are giving you insights or just information. And then finally, my advice, start small. Pick one area where clarity can make a big impact. I hope today's presentation was helpful to all of you attending, and you see how SmartSites can help you implement alarm management as a way to improve efficiency, safety, report it yourself. You can download a free trial directly from our website, smartsites.com. We'd also be happy to set up a more in-depth demo tailored to your specific environment. You can schedule that by emailing us at the email listed here at the bottom of the slide, sales@smartsites.com. I'll go ahead and open the floor now for any questions. Let's see if any came in during the presentation. While we're waiting for questions to come in, I do have a few housekeeping items for upcoming trainings and workshops. SmartSites will be hosting a Win911 new user training on Tuesday, September 23rd at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And we'll also be hosting an Excel Reporter new user training on Thursday, September 25th at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. So I know today we dove more into the ISA 18.2 module. If you'd like to see Excel Reporter in more detail, I invite you to that Excel Reporter new user training on the 25th, Thursday, September 25th at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And again, if you're not familiar with Win911, that's another one of our core products. We are hosting a new user training for that on Tuesday, September 23rd at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. On top of those two, we'll be hosting more workshops like this one on the second Thursday of each month through the end of the year. Our next workshop will take place on Thursday, October 9th at 10 a.m. Central Time, where we'll dive into the evolution of data collection in manufacturing and how our Able product solves those challenges. You can sign up for that, and as well as the new user trainings the same way you did this one. You can go to our website under the resources tab. You'll find links for the new user training and workshops, which will take you to the registration page. Okay, final call for questions. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you everyone for your time today, and have a great rest of your day.